Welcome to RayPresents episode 62. Today I'm joined by Amber Kanwar. You've seen her on BNN Bloomberg for years as one of the most respected business journalists in the country. And now she's stepped into her own lane with her podcast, In the Money with Amber Kanwar. It's a big move, and that's exactly the kind of energy that I like to celebrate here on RayPresents. Amber, glad to have you on.
Ray, I'm delighted to be on. I love listening to your show. There's people when I got into the business, people said you have to be interesting and interested, and you can tell you're so interested when you speak to these people. And I think that's why people love your show.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. So, you studied into journalism, and during your studies, you had a project which ended up breaking a big story. Can you tell me about this story, and if you would say that's what really launched you toward your opportunity at BNN?
So that's interesting. There's many layers to that story. The headline, as you said, is yes, my journalism thesis at what was then Ryerson and now TMU was about a fertility journey. It started with a fertility journey and it basically ended with the doctor in Ottawa um, inseminating with the wrong sperm. So the child born as a result was not born from the intended sperm. And through my year of investigation, I uncovered that this had happened multiple times. And this was not some sort of, back alley doctor. He was a very celebrated doctor. He had the Order of Canada, but along the way in his career, he had made mistakes. And as you said, I was the first person to uncover that. And I was 20 at the time. And just to back into that story, I was in my last year of my master's program in journalism. And I'll take a quick sidetrack if you'll allow me.
Of
We had
course.
to present what our thesis was going to be, just a couple of sentences. And I was really struggling. I just had no idea what I was going to do. So I was late. I was more than a month late. And the school was very upset. They were pissed off at me. And I got a reprimand and I was kind of put on a quasi probation I could not have another late assignment after that. But it truly wasn't because I was slacking. I just really didn't know. So against the wire, I just kind of picked fertility because this was at a time before the government was covering IVF and funded rounds. This was of the time of the Octomom. People were inseminating themselves with multiple embryos. It was really a wild west of fertility, and you could do a lot of things that today you couldn't do. And the government was just starting to, there were lobbying efforts to get the government to cover sort of these fertility treatments. So I said, okay, this is interesting. And then I just posted very benignly in a Facebook group. There's Facebook groups for everything. So it's like Fertility Awareness Canada, something like that. And I said, hey, I'm a journalism student. If you have any fertility stories, please share. One woman got in touch with me and we spoke for half an hour over the phone. And she said, so her fertility journey was such that she could not carry a child, but her sister offered to be her surrogate.
Mhm.
And she was going to use her husband's sperm with her sister's, eggs and her womb to have a child. And then when the child was born, it came to light that, it wasn't her husband's sperm and it wasn't her sister's husband's sperm. And, there was no nefariousness going around. It was just it was some third party that they just didn't know. They confronted the doctor
Wow.
and he admitted error. But she told me this 30 minutes into the call and she said, that part's off the record. I'm like, well, that's the story. I can't be off the record. But she told me this in October, November. And remember, my thesis isn't due till June of the
Hmm.
following year. So I worked with her. It was a great early lesson of gaining someone's trust. In the meantime, doing all the research, I flew to Ottawa many times, going to the courts, getting records of previous lawsuits, trying to get in touch with other families. And we'd found a couple. And in the end, another woman, this time was a single woman who wanted sperm donor A, but got sperm donor B, So, maybe less of a screw up by the doctor, but still a screw up nonetheless. It wasn't the sperm donor that she had picked.
Hmm.
She was willing to go on the record. So I had kind of two sources on the record. And then, yeah, as I said, like the doctor, and then I interviewed the doctor. I came up there and I said, I didn't say much. I just said, I'm a journalism student. And he'd been covered in media all the time because he was a trailblazer, particularly within the LGBTQ community. He was
Hmm.
one of the first doctors to support family making. So again, not a terrible man, right? It seems like he's just trying to help people make families, but he makes mistakes. And so I was so nervous. I'm 20 years old and I'm going to do my first accountability interview, and I'm probably going to ruin this man's life, right? And so that was there was a lot going through my head, but that was a key moment for me because you have to realize, like, what am I doing this for? Mistakes are being made. The government knew about these mistakes. Health Canada knew, right? Because each of these victims had complained and they were still allowing this doctor to operate. No one was going in and cleaning up the practices. And who knows, maybe something would happen with screening and somebody could get ill from, the errant things that they were being inseminated with. So I just kind of had to keep that in mind, knowing that I'm face to face with a person and all his children were in these photos behind him and grandchildren. He had a lot of them. So that was really challenging for me, but I did it. And and then I put out my thesis. I reached out to the Globe and Mail. I said, I have this story. And then, yes, it was on the front page. And then more people started to come out. And what was interesting is, ultimately he's no longer practicing. Years after I left the story and other people were on it, it was just none of the children I had unearthed were related to each other.
Hmm.
But then children started to come out that were related and that were
Wow.
related to the doctor.
Wow.
So, that story kind of carried on for years. And I was busy doing other things at BNN. So I kind of lost track of it. But it's funny you said, how did that set me up at BNN? It didn't at all. I was working as an intern at BNN, pouring people's coffee and miking up guests. And then I just had this one national story that broke all this news. But but nobody, I didn't have a job out of it. I was still at BNN, and they were like, "Oh, that's kind of cool. You did that." I'm like, "Yeah, I guess." And then that's it. That's the only time I've ever been in print. I just went, just that one time, and I had a national story. Now I write a daily column for the Globe that's been over the last few months, but literally the one and only time over 10, 15 years I'd been in print was just breaking one national story and then being like, okay, and I'm done. I'm going to go to TV now.
That's amazing. Wow, what a story. At 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite the story there. So okay, so you're at BNN, you were at BNN already, pouring people's coffee.
Okay.
So what helped you build the confidence to go from that to what built your confidence and credibility along the way after
I
that story?
I think along the way, really, if it boils down to it, it's not a secret. It's just hard work.
Hmm.
For me in my 20s, I was motivated a lot by a fear of failing, and so I was just I kind of knew as I got there. I said, I think I want to be on TV. I think I want to report financial news. And I'm saying this as somebody with no MBA, no CFA, and I'm just kind of having this audacious dream saying I want to do this, but I'm not so silly that I think I can do this. So I just really put my head down and I cared so deeply about absorbing the material, really understanding, studying at the feet of the great people who worked there, who had decades of experience, and just grinding, and proving that I was worthy. And then those kind of things, you just don't know where that's going to lead you at the time, right? I would do that day in and day out. And every day that I wasn't asked to be on TV felt like a failure, right? Because I was doing the work, but other people see that. And so there was a breakthrough moment where an anchor was leaving. And on her way out the door, she spoke to the general manager of the station and said, I think you should put Amber on. And had she not, there was really no reason for her to do that. But had she not done that, I don't know that the management would have then seen me. Because when I went on air, I was 25. Like I was very in financial news, like you're such a baby. You haven't even seen a market cycle, really. So, definitely there was a bit of imposter syndrome. How I was on air at 25 is not who I am or how I am now. Obviously, I've just
Hmm.
grown into the confidence. I was scared out of my mind every day that I went on, but I use that as kind of fuel. Fear can be paralyzing or it can motivate you. And I just kind of allow it to motivate me. Um, I also took an improv class. One of my mentors recommended do improv at Second City. And that was
Wow.
almost like, it was kind of therapeutic in some ways because improv, it's not about performing. It's like literally just be present. Like don't worry about what you know. What are you going to say next? What are you going to say next? Listen to the person, focus on the person, and respond organically. Respond with what you know. Kind of like how actors say, like, I think of the material and then I walk into the room and I just forget it all. Like improv kind of taught me that is like walk in knowing what you know and see where that takes you. And so I kind of apply that obviously at work, but also kind of in my social life too, like going to parties. I don't have social anxiety. I'm just like, I'll just see what people say and then say things back.
Do you have to be an extrovert when you're in your business? What do you feel?
Oh, I'm an extrovert introvert. My husband likes to joke I have 2 hours of charm in me per day, and they all get used up on TV. And then I come home and I just need to be in a dark room and just decompress from all of that. Like I used to work with Marilyn Dennis,
Hmm.
and that woman is who she is on TV. She is just a ray of sunshine and so nice. And just, you can tell, just gets high off people and their energy. And I don't, like if you saw me on the street, be like, why does she look so grumpy? I'm tired. I'm tired all the time. So yeah, you do need to have that part. Like I do need to summon that energy. And yes, I'm an extrovert. From the time I was like 8, I just wanted to be famous, but I have no skills. I can't dance, sing, or act. So I was just like, what else can I do? And this
But I
is
took
it.
improv.
But I took improv. Yeah, yeah.
So, what kind of exercises did they have you do? Just out of curiosity.
So it's kind of like drama class. It's not like people get nervous because they think, oh, I'm just going to put you up on stage
Hmm.
and do something funny. Like that's not it. They start really small. And it's this premise of yes and. Somebody just says a word and you have to yes and that word, right? So if they say toilet, I'm not going to say grass. I have to say bowl, right? And then someone else goes around the room and we build a sentence together. We build a story. So it's really micro in the early levels, which is all I did, like I did in advance. But in the early levels, it's just those little micro exercises that just get you out of your head and really teach you focus, be present, yes, and see what people are saying in yes, and as an interviewer, such a tremendous skill, right? In my early part of my career, I wasn't listening to a single thing my guest said because I was focused on what's my next question going to be, right? And so that's not as engaging. And this as an interview, it's not as engaging to listen
Yeah,
to when somebody's just going through questions. So it really helped me specifically with interviewing.
that's brilliant. I never thought about that.
You should do it,
Improv.
Ray.
You know what? I'm thinking about it now. That's great. So, fast forward 15
Yeah.
years or 16 years go by. You're at BNN,
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing great for yourself. But then something happens. You tell yourself, you know what? It's time for me to step out and have my own platform. What led you to that decision? Being on such a great, powerful network.
So it's a couple of things. The first one is personal. I have
Hmm.
3 children
Hmm.
and they're young. I had 3 children at BNN and I had 3 mat leaves and I left and I came back. And honestly, it was kind of easy to be a mom of young kids and stay um, rigidly attached to the workforce. And when I say rigidly, like having set hours and doing all that, and I say it's easy because I had a lot of help. I have a husband, I have a nanny, um, but also the kids don't do much, right? They nap. There's not a lot going on. I come home and we just play. Now they're
How
getting
old are they?
older. So now they're getting older. I have 8, 6, and 4.
Okay. So
And
is
now it's just like friggin' logistics. Like it is just, I got to coordinate their whole lives every single day, and it's different. And to add to the chaos, they all go to different schools.
oh
So
great.
I didn't make anything easy for myself. And really, it's like, so fine. On one hand, I'm very ambitious. I love to work, but this is too much. It's overwhelming, and I need some flexibility. And I'm missing things in their lives. Like if I couldn't go to pizza lunch, for example, ever, unless I was willing to take a day off from work or ask somebody to fill in for my show so that I could do their, it's just like, I didn't need more logistics. I just needed a little bit of agency with my schedule. So I was kind of at that point where I'm like, I'm struggling to hold it all together. And I'd never felt that before. Felt like I can do this. This is all manageable. So I felt like, life was getting big. And I was struggling to hold all those logistics together within the constraints of not having autonomy over my schedule. The other part is like, I've always been kind of passionate about the business side of things. And I've had views about, how the content we do should be dealt with and how to adapt to kind of changing realities of people's consumption patterns, right? Like cableism wasn't what it used to be. Social media is absolutely huge. Like I think it's 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 people start their investing journey on social media,
Hmm.
right? Like that's so different than even 10 years ago or 15 years ago when I started in the business. You were the only game in town. So I was curious about that. Podcasts, absolutely kind of blowing up. But here I was, I do kind of a 2-hour show on cable and I love it, but I'm locked into this distribution mechanism. And I start to feel like maybe I'm not reaching all the people that I could. And I'm at a point in my career where, as much as I'm saying like, oh, I feel like I'm overwhelmed, but I also have this ambition where I'm like, I think I can do something. I think I'm locked in with my audience. I think I know what they want and I think I can deliver it. So I was kind of podcast curious, I guess you can say. And I thought, maybe I'll do an occasional podcast and then I could do some speaking, and that's how I'll like stitch a life together. And I'll still be viewed as credible because I have my own podcast. That's kind of why I started the podcast. I was like, you're right to your point. I'm like, I can't just be Amber. I need to be Amber of something. I still felt that insecurity. Like if I'm not Amber of BNN, like who am I? So I need to come up with something to be Amber of something. And I just love talking about stocks. I love the market. I'm so passionate about it. I know investing changes lives, and I don't think enough people realize it and do it. And if I can, in my small way, help it more accessible to people, and not in a personal finance way. Like I love the real alpha of the markets, talking stock ideas. Where can we find upside? And I think there's something powerful about somebody who like looks like me, talks like me, acts like me, is a mother of 3 children, that's like taking up space
Hmm.
in this arena, where not a lot of people who look like me for now do that. And I've received a lot of messages from women who have said basically that, and that's really wonderful. But at the same time, like I remember, going to a restaurant. Actually, it's happened a few times. But at a restaurant, like waiters will come up to me and say, during the pandemic, like they were among some of the most devastated people from an employment perspective, right? Restaurants shut down. They had nothing, right? So they're on these CERB benefits, and it wasn't enough for a lot of people. And one gentleman in particular told me, he's like, I turned on BNN. I learned about investing and I started investing, and 2021 was like an amazing time in the market. So like good time to start. And he made money, and he said it changed his life. And I'm like, it's not just about these like billionaires and $1 billion fund managers and all of that. Like investing now has never been easier, right? You can buy fractional shares, you can trade for $0. You have to know what you're doing.
Hmm.
And my podcast is education, right? People make your own decisions, but understand the process of evaluating stocks. I think that's just like a useful life skill. So it was all these three things: motherhood, wanting to branch out and do something more, and then just a true passion for investing.
So you talk about, being passionate about investing. Do you think, let's bring it to education. You say you have three young kids. I have three kids also. Uh, do you think the school system is doing a good job in, educating kids about finance? What are
No.
your views
I
on
mean,
it?
think about
No.
what you learned in high school. Think about what you learned, I know what an isosceles triangle is, but like, I don't know, I don't know about the power of compounding. Did they
Hmm.
teach that? Did they teach you about how to analyze a stock? I remember in high school, we did actually have a stock picking competition, but we received no instruction. It was like, here's the paper. Because remember at the time, this is how old I am. The tickers were in the paper, and you just kind of like, okay, I picked this one, and it was all just kind of random. But I wasn't taught like where can you find information about these companies? What are sales? What are earnings? Like, how can you decide if a company's sales earnings are going to grow higher? Like those sort of things. Um, and I just think we teach these like really academic versions of math, which are fine, and I guess you need it. But we all know in the real world, like you don't really need it.
Mm.
And so can we teach some like basic principles about like how to manage finances? Why not set a savings goal for these children and say like, where can you find savings? Like learn how to add and subtract through practical application of like how can you manage your finances, especially in this world, Ray. Everyone's going up on social media and it's like, what is it, keeping up with the Joneses on steroids. All you do is see the best versions of people's
That's
lives.
right.
Private jets, Rolls Royce, whatever. It's all fake.
Hmm.
Some of it is fake, but it's just like, that's not real life. But you're growing up, these children are growing up thinking that's real life. Like, show me your TFSA. Show me, that's the kind of stuff I want to see. That's what like
Yeah.
kids should be aspiring to,
On the
is like
flip
growing
side,
that wealth.
your kids are very fortunate to have you, right?
Yeah, I don't.
To listen to these kind of conversation. That's definitely a positive, to be in that type of environment on a regular basis and to hear those conversations. That's really good for them.
We'll see. Right now, they're sort of annoyed by it. They're like, why are you doing this? Why don't you just stay home? But yes, I hope eventually
Yeah,
they'll absorb the message.
that's great. That's great. You mentioned, you touched a little bit about representation and something, obviously that's something that's very important to me. You We don't see a big presence, people of color, women of color, uh, in the media, but it's in particular in business. How do you think we can improve that?
So I'm of two minds of that. Like, on one hand, I think the fact that I was a 25-year-old girl actually is why I got on TV. Part of it, like, I knew my stuff, but I think it was like, hey, here's a different face, a different form of presentation, like than the typical BNN anchor that
Hmm.
was, on there. Um, Not to say that they didn't have women and they didn't have minorities. They did occasionally, but it wasn't it was the minority, not the majority. So I think that that was a little bit of an edge at the beginning. And then that kind of stuff, if an organization is looking for that, only takes you so far, right? Like you do have to know your stuff, and in many ways you have to know it better because failure is not an option. One of the studies you'll see a lot on International Women's Day is like female CEOs outperform male CEOs, so this is why we should have more female CEOs. And it's like, no, imagine how good she had to be to break through. Like, this woman had to be not just good, she had to be knock your socks off good. So of course she's going to perform. And one of my favorite portfolio managers says, we'll have equality when mediocre women can succeed. And I like that. Because we don't ask men to be better, right, than the benchmark. We don't ask that. I don't like those studies where it's like minorities perform whatever. Like, I shouldn't have to. I
Mm.
shouldn't have to do better. I should just do as well or have the right credentials or whatever it is. So I think that needs to be adjusted as well. And then we're not doing it for some performance sake. We're doing it because it's like humans. We're all humans, and we should all have equal opportunities. So that's kind of my philosophy. In terms of women in particular, like motherhood is a real bugaboo, you know,
Mm,
especially finance, especially business. They haven't figured out how to deal with women who have children. The gender wage gap doesn't actually show up until women start having children, because women actually have, on average, are attaining higher education at greater rates than men. Okay, so it's not an education gap. In your 20s, generally, the stats show, and this is data, it's not done frequently, but this is kind of data I'm referencing, is like, it's definitely old, like 5 to 8 years old, but it feels true in my life. And I know a lot of women, it feels true in their life. So it doesn't show up until motherhood. Why? You have to take time off. Your kids get older, it becomes more complicated, and you decide, can you hang on? Can you hang on in these early years? I could not hang on, right? I am one of many women that can't hang on in the structure that they existed in before they had children, because now they have children. And the children need them for like 5 really intense years before it starts to get easy again. And so I don't know, there's stuff I could do, right, better, but that's like puts too much pressure on women. As an organization, you have to think, like, I'm really smart. I'm very ambitious. I'm very good at my job. Are you okay to lose me because like I've got a thing to do for a couple of years? Like, are you okay with that brain drain? Or can you restructure your organization? Can you give women more flexibility? Because I promise you, you don't have to waver on deliverables. I promise you that. You probably just need to waver a little bit on flexibility, on accommodation, especially in sell side banking. I've heard, I've never worked, but obviously I do a lot of advocacy for women in finance.
mhm,
And I know that like sell side is hard, right? It's harder to hang on. If you go to buy side, it's a little bit easier, which is you're a portfolio manager, you're buying stocks, versus when you're sell side, you work in the bank, you know, it's very rigorous. You will not find new moms in investment banking rising through the ranks of investment banking.
mm.
It would be extraordinarily difficult because of how the job is sort of set up. So think about that as an organization. What are you losing? And it might feel like you're not losing anything, but there are just, people complain about productivity in this country. You've got a bunch of productive women who you wouldn't even believe. I'm the CEO of 4 people, right? Of my house. I'm keeping 3
Yeah.
and 4. I'm going to throw my husband in. I'm keeping 3 people alive right now.
You're throwing your husband in there?
Yeah. He needs a little bit of help from time to time. I'm sure you can attest.
Don't we all? Yeah.
I'm raising that man as well a little bit. He's raising me, but I'm raising him too. And so trust me, it's not going to affect the deliverables. Like, I can do whatever you need at work cold.
Yeah.
Just like, what's the accommodation? What's the flexibility that a woman needs to do that job? Think about it.
Yeah.
And stop telling women to lean in or whatever, break the glass ceiling. Like, we're tired. Like, just clear the obstacles out of our way and we'll deliver for you.
I love that. Such an important topic, and I'm glad you shared this information with us. Do you have a lot of organizations actually, reaching out to you, say, "Hey, what can we do better?"
No,
No.
but I
Well,
encourage them to
here's the
reach out
message.
and ask that question. What can you do better? I do some work with Versify, it was formerly called Women in Capital Markets. And so they're kind of the group that advocates for women. And I've got a great partnership with Scotia's Women Initiative,
Hmm.
which they're the only bank that I can think of actually that really does put this issue of helping women succeed in all facets, financially, jobs, and if they're business owners as well. That's like why you find women starting their own businesses, because again, they're competent. They just need flexibility. That's ultimately why they end up doing that.
Hmm.
And it's actually on Scotia. It's interesting. It was an initiative spearheaded by the former CEO, Rick Waugh. That was one, we still haven't had a female CEO of a Canadian bank. We've had some female CFOs and chairs, but no female CEO. And so I think there's still so much work to be done. Like,
Oh
board
yeah.
representation is pathetic. You need to see that at the leadership. And yeah, stop asking women to do more because they're doing it. You need to look inward. What are the barriers in your organization?
Flexibility. Love that. Amber, in your work, obviously you've had interviews with so many important people, prime ministers, CEOs, CFOs, powerful individuals. What is one quality that you've noticed in leaders that you try to carry into your own life?
Honesty and confidence. My favorite interviews, and it doesn't happen often with CEOs because they got to be on message and whatever. But I trust a CEO more that isn't on message and is honest about the mistakes and the failures.
Hmm.
If you're nobody likes to be gaslighted, and everybody knows when it's happening, right? So a CEO or any leader who denies challenges are happening, that's dishonest in my view, right? It's not like they're lying, but it's dishonest not to acknowledge real challenges. Because if you don't acknowledge the real challenges, I can't tell what's promotion, what's fact, what's fiction. And in my line of work, I can tell pretty quickly, who understands that. And that comes from confidence, right? Ultimately, you can be honest about challenges if you have confidence that those challenges don't define you. And so I see that in really great leaders. And I try and emulate that myself. Obviously I'm a journalist, so honesty is super important to me. But confidence I've had to learn along the way. And confidence is, it's a little bit of fake it till you make it. But it's also being comfortable with your own gaps. So I used to be terrified of looking stupid on air, not knowing the material. And so I studied that was unacceptable to me. Now I'm at a point where, you know what, if I don't know it, and I've been doing this for 15 years, there's a good chance it either doesn't make sense or other people don't know it too. And I can help them by asking questions that help me understand and maybe help others understand. So honesty and confidence, I think, are the two most important traits.
That's great. That could be the motto for political parties: honesty and confidence. I like that.
And we don't see it enough in Canada, to be honest. I interview a lot of Canadian and US
Yeah,
leaders.
I've seen that.
And US leaders will tell you everything. They'll tell you I don't like this policy, and I like this government or whatever, or I'm critical of this government. They'll tell you how they voted, like Republicans. It's not this secret. Oh my God, it's so secretive. And Canada's you can't piss anybody off. You don't want to piss anyone off. So I'm not going to tell you I didn't like this because I don't want you to be mad at me for being mad at you. And so it's, again, I go back to the productivity issue. You have to be afraid to you can't be afraid to piss some people off if you're right, if you're going to get things forward. I know we're a polite society, and that's a good thing in terms of caring for all people. But you also have to kind of speak up and be critical when it matters.
Yeah, maybe not being not leaning on one side could be. I've tried to find the balance, I guess.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah. Everyone's afraid of being canceled, and I don't know, maybe I'll
yeah.
get canceled after this.
No, I don't think
hope
so.
not. But I think the risk is greater if you don't say something.
Hmm. Honesty and confidence.
Yeah.
Amber, my last question, well, kind of ties into taking your classes there of right. So I heard you dabbed into stand-up comedy not
I
too
did.
long
Yeah.
ago, and from what I
Yeah.
heard, you held your own. Can you tell me more about where you see stand-up in your future?
Maybe a Netflix special after I'm
Nef-
done with the podcast. Yeah, I'll call it Mom Jokes or something. So I've always been stand-up curious, and I'll say I thought I was funny going into these lessons, right? So I did it through Second City. Again, I should get a promo code for Second City, the way I'm pumping them. But I
I'll
have no
tag them.
promo code. I'm not paid by them. But yeah, so again, it was at an inflection point in my career, signs that I'm unhappy at work is like, okay, what else can I do? Where else can I get stimulation? So it was before I left BNN, and I signed up for the stand-up course. And, I've had 3 children. My life has been all about them, but I'm finally coming up for air. So it was just like a moment where I'm like, I'm a woman who's just like, a mom and works, and I have no hobbies, but I think I'm funny and I'm looking to grow. And so, and like I love comedians. I will watch, Seth Meyers, Nate Bargatze. Like I love all of that. And I'm curious about how they structure jokes and things like that. So I kind of realized like, hey, I think I'm a little bit of a nerd about this. So I start these lessons thinking this is great. Oh my gosh, you learn so quickly. You're not funny. Because like you think you're funny in like storytelling, like this conversationally, but telling a joke, presenting a joke, taking people there, it's a structure, like it's an art, and I just didn't know it at all. So that was great, right? Because there's a new challenge, it's something to learn, and it's scary. I think the worst thing that can happen to a person is if you tell a joke and no one laughs.
No one
Like
laughs.
that's so hard. But then if you recover from that, you will be fearless, right? If you can make mistakes in front of everybody and recover, like comedians, think about how Teflon they are, that they can do stuff like that. And now a lot of them struggle with like mental health issues, which is sort of an aside because it's a very highs and lows type of career. But anyway, I just thought, I was like, man, if I can do this, if I can go up and I can fail, and if I fail at this, like what if I fail at something else? Like maybe it won't bug me as much. So it was like kind of like that, looking at it from personal growth. And Stefan, my husband, provides a lot of content for me. So over the past year, without even knowing it, I'd been kind of like writing notes of things that I thought could be bits. He's he's kind of an odd guy. And, there's all quirky things about marriage. And I think being a mother is wild, right? Like I interviewed the prime minister, but at home it's like, Mom, I pooed, come wipe me. And it's like, you just like, you don't get too, big for your britches outside the home because your kids will like humble you. So I just think like that dichotomy of like being a mom, being a successful person, like outside the home and being like a literal servant at home was like kind of cool. So just to play with those ideas. So yeah, I did it. And this always happens to first time comedians is you crush. I crushed. It was so good. And I don't know if I can do it again.
No.
It's like if I flop the second time. So what they say is like, you will crush your first time and then you'll spend the rest of your life chasing that high. Like I was flying after that. I will try it again, but then I started a business and it's kind of taken a backseat.
Well, there you have it. You have a scoop on RayPresents, Amber Kanwar.
That's right.
With the Netflix special coming up soon. No, that's amazing. I have a lot of respect for comedians as well. I have a friend of mine who's a stand-up comedian in Montreal, and I send him little content, pretty much like your husband does. I say, hey, here, try this. I think this is funny, right? Because I totally realize how magical it is for them to deliver a story. In your head, it sounds funny, but you have to deliver it to an audience, right? That's incredible.
And like it's like community building too, because I'm not the only mom, that's dealing with this stuff. And I'm not the only wife that's dealing with, a husband. Or like, talking about me being Indian, like we all grew up with like a very specific culture. And you think it's just you, but then when comedians share it, you're like, oh my God, that's me too.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Listen, Amber, I thank you very much for your time. I like to end my conversations with this. We learn today and we lead tomorrow. Thanks again for your time. You shared a lot of important information I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ray, for the opportunity. I'm really grateful.
Yes, looking forward to that Netflix in the future.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.